All right, well, let's call our meeting to order. All right, good afternoon, everyone. We will call our meeting to order at 1 o'clock. And welcome to the March Public Board meeting. We look forward to reviewing information on Legal Public School, the capital plan, and the Edwin Parr Award selection. Just to let the public know, we will have a hard stop between 1:50 and 1:55 for the board to go in camera to discuss the Edwin Parr selection and a labor matter. As such, an adjustment to the order of the agenda will be proposed. The proposal is that we will move the administrative reporter financial report, which is item 9.1, to fall under item 7.3, the legal engagement report presentation. And we will also move the Edwin Parr selection, 8.3, to the first of our action items. And after that, the board will go into in-camera. And as we meet together this afternoon, could we ask our online participants to please turn on your cameras? We would love to see who is joining us online today. So thank you very much, and we will move forward to the land acknowledgement, and I will ask Vice Chair Bradens to read that for us. Thank you.
As we gather here today, we begin by acknowledging that we are on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional meeting ground, gathering place, and a traveling route for many Indigenous peoples. This land is home to the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, Nakota Sioux, Métis, and many others who have cared for these lands for generations. In this season of spring, we are reminded of renewal, growth, and the cycles of life that have always guided Indigenous ways of going. The melting snow, the return of birds, and the greening of the earth echo teachings that speak to resilience, community, and connection to the land. As school trustees, our responsibility to students, families, and each other is deeply enriched by recognizing and respecting the histories and contributions of First Peoples on this land. Let us carry that awareness into our decisions we make, the relationships we build, and the future we help shape, rooted in truth, respect, and reconciliation. May we move forward with gratitude, humility, and renewed commitment to learning from the land and the peoples.
Thank you, Vice Chair Briggs. Very nicely done. We move to item number 4 on the agenda, which is the approval of the agenda. And we will ask for a motion for this one with an adjustment to the order of the agenda items as outlined. Is there, thank you.
I move that the agenda be approved with the amendments presented.
Thank you. Is there any objections to that? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Trustee O'Shea. Item number 5 is the approval of the minutes. And we have several different minutes here that we are going to take a look at. The first one, 5.1, is the minutes of the regular board meeting of February 25th. Are there any corrections to those minutes? If not, the minutes are received. The approval of the minutes of the special board meeting of February 26th. Are there any corrections to those minutes? Seeing none, those are received. I do have note that back to the January 25th public board meetings, there is a correction to note. If we could just go through those. On page 6, there is an indication under the school education plan and counseling and wellness plans.
Need a motion for the minutes, Chair.
The minutes are just received. If there's no unanimously accepted.
We usually do a motion to approve minutes.
We don't approve minutes, we just receive them as such unless, if there's corrections, we do that. If there is no corrections, we just receive them.
Okay.
is coming from public school boards. We approve the agenda, but the minutes are not requiring any motion.
Okay.
But there is a change, which we probably will need a motion for, which is the January 25th ones. So on page 6, on the January 25th minutes, under school education plan and counseling and wellness plans, the minutes indicate school web pages are listed below, and we would ask that those are listed below. Is that my computer that's making that horrible noise?
No.
Oh, it's people coming online. Okay, good. So if we could just add that link into the minutes, that would be fantastic. And the second part on page 10 was under supplemental transportation report. The key opportunities for enhancement. I believe that the board suggested at that time that they would support calling families to confirm ridership. And I didn't see that in the minutes, but I do believe that board discussions took place around that. So if you could just check that to notes to make sure. And I would ask for a motion that we would have the corrections to the January 25th minutes as noted. Do we have such a motion? Thank you. Trustee Briggs?
I move that the January 25th minutes are amended as per board chair corrections.
Are there any conversations or discussions around that? Any objections? Seeing none, that would be unanimously carried. And corrections will be as noted. All right, thank you. Moving to item number 6, business arising from the minutes. Did we miss? No, we did not. Business arising from the minutes. Seeing none, we will move into number 7, which is our presentations and delegations. And I see that we have David McIntyre here with us this afternoon again. Thank you, David. And David is our ATA representative. And would you like to begin?
Sure. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, trustees, members of the senior administration, and those in attendance. As always, I'm very grateful to be here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Sturgeon ATA Local continues to follow the developments related to the Back to School Act, known as Bill 2. As most of you are aware, the ATA's recent injunction application to pause the legislation was denied last week. In brief, the court did find that there was a serious issue to be tried, and though there was serious harm found, the threshold for irreparable harm was not met, nor would an injunction reverse the harm caused. And finally, that the balance of convenience favored the province. So that was the intention behind the denial. The decision does not resolve the broader constitutional challenge, which is scheduled for a full hearing in September. While there is understanding about Justice Ma's decision, it is disappointing given the context of how everything took place. The use of the notwithstanding clause to end bargaining and impose a settlement on teachers last fall raised significant concerns around the removal of fundamental rights and the precedent that it sets, the impact of which teachers in our division are still feeling to this day. Those concerns remain central as the ATA moves forward with its constitutional challenge. And we will continue advocating for teachers and students in the strength of public education in Alberta. At a more local level, there has been some cautious optimism around the recent funding announcements, particularly those related to complexity supports. While the additional investment is greatly appreciated, teachers are also recognizing that the range and intensity of needs in classrooms continue to grow. And there's a clear understanding that one complexity team alone for one of our schools in our elementary area is not sufficient to address those challenges. We are hopeful that supports will continue to expand to better reflect the realities in our schools. And after a particularly busy stretch in March, spring break comes at a welcome time. We'll provide an important opportunity for our staff and students to rest, recharge, and spend time with family. So we're looking forward to that.
Thank you so much for that. I found it disheartening that the item was not upheld. Not having irreparable harm is a little bit of a concern, but I guess it's a very strong test to uphold, and I do hope that things work in favor in the next court injunction or proceeding. Thank you for your hard work in that area, and on behalf of all teachers and staff, I think much appreciation for all the work that's put into that through the ATA. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Anything else? Yes, Trustee Buga.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say thank you for coming to stay with us for our meetings. It's really important that we do hear local context as far as ATA goes, because we hear a lot of messaging from the province and we hear a lot of messaging from the media that doesn't necessarily represent how our staff are feeling and how our ATA needs to be heard. So I appreciate you spending the time to bring that to us so that we can really make an informed decision at the board table.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Buga. Any other comments? Yes, Trustee O'Shea.
Well, thank you again for coming. You know, I know the complexity dollars that we've just recently seen. I know the ATA was hoping through job action that some of those things would be addressed in collective agreement, and they were not. But I think from my lens, that the job action that our ATA members took certainly led and supported some of the stuff we're seeing with complexity. So I think it brought it to the attention of government. I'm not sure that they were willing to put it into a collective agreement, but I think the job action did bring attention to it. And so I think if there's any element of success from the job action that the teachers took, it would be that we are now seeing some funds. We don't know how sustainable those funds are. We don't know what the long-term future for those are. But I would say in a partial way that as a win, perhaps for the ATA, because I think their job action did bring that to the attention of government and the public. And I think it caused the government to have to move forward and look at complexity in schools. So not what I think teachers were hoping for, but in the end, I think it still brought some positive change to the system, and we see some more money in the system. So please let your membership know that I personally see a link between the job action and the recent announcements, and I think that's due to the work by your members. So thank you.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I agree with you. I believe that the sacrifice of our teachers was a core part of the illumination of what is needed in our schools and public education. And so we're grateful that the province is starting to respond to that now being seen in a more clear way.
Sure.
Again, due to the way that things ended, I think that's where the majority of the fight still rests, as well as holding accountability to ensure that these supports do continue to be given out to the students that need it. So thank you.
You say it so much more eloquently than you think. I stumble around, but you say it well.
The support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much.
And in a language you can all understand. So thank you for that. Much appreciated. Okay, any other questions or comments for David? All right, again, just appreciation for joining us as you always do. It's nice to see your familiar face at the end of the table. Okay, thank you so much. You're welcome to stay. We have 7.2 is our QP representative, and I don't see Ms. Salisbury here today, but of course always welcome to join at any point in time. And that moves us on to agenda item number 7.3. And this afternoon we will have our interim superintendent Conrad, who will speak to the report that is attached in your board package, as the consultant is unavailable due to a scheduling conflict. So we will turn to our interim superintendent to share this report with us. Look forward to hearing it.
Thank you, Chair. And for those online and obviously yourselves, it is in the package, all the data and information that I'm going to just lightly touch on. This is, an engagement that spanned multiple different methodologies. The board was a part of some of it, like the Come Together at Legal School, which I think was quite wonderful for the community. And then there were other elements. There was an online survey that was open to community and also to staff across the division. And then there were individual conversations that happened that were open to anyone in the community, and certainly happened with the staff within the school. So just to reflect, that was the methodology of the engagement that happened over the last few months. Exciting that the board has been meaningful that the board has been part of that and present, and that was noted by the community. Just to clarify though, the engagement was not, whether to keep school open or not. The engagement was to ask and listen, what would be the impacts if something were to change with the school? What would be concerns? What other considerations should the board be reflecting on and thinking about? So it was wider scope than a single question or anything like that. And as I mentioned, there were quite a number of respondents. I would highlight that while the majority was in community, of the survey respondents, there was 33% of other staff as well. And I think that represents from the respondents, a significant number that staff across the division also wanted to contribute to the board's understanding of those things, the impact and what they see. To highlight a few things, when we look at Legal families and staff, so now we're more in community than broad, they wanted us to hear that the supports for complex needs is very welcome in that building. They wanted us to hear, they felt the school has a sense of community and belonging. They wanted us to hear, this is impacts on anything going forward, that should a decision be made, that we're worried about things like transportation. And they were worried about choice in public education for themselves. This is in that community. Others, so now we're looking at wide, wanted the board to hear about, concerns around resources, perhaps across the division, and some other considerations, again, more division-wide. The staff leaned more into those responses, just in a high level, very, very high level. Reflected now to get a bit more, the second part was concerns, and that the ones that come up here was if a close were to happen, will there be transition planning? Will there be supports moving into different schools? Also, if close were to happen, they were concerned about what that might impact in terms of relationship with the families that are currently in the school and with trust. They would want the board to hear if a consideration were given to keeping open, like if that's then reflect on past or current marketing, current recruitment or awareness within the community. Maybe reflect on what has been done and consider some of the suggestions that the community brought forward to do different things. From a just a reflection point or reassurance for the board, we asked that was asked of participants in this process. Did you feel the information was shared openly? Did you feel it was useful for you to come to the engagement, or the questions were good, and so on? And this data is in there, and it was quite a high response. So the people that did either attend or take the survey did respond positively, that they felt they were able to share their concerns and share their ideas with the board. However we go forward, there were some recommendations that just said, from community, from respondents, to encourage the board to keep open communication going, to ensure families know how things are going at the right time, and just to ensure, again, quite a bit of wonder about if there is a change, or even if there isn't, supports and like everyone plans next year as soon as they can. So there was in the data just an ask of the board to just keep that open communication that they are feeling is started through the engagement. So like that is high level. There's a lot of detail, and it's available for anyone on that link. And there's also quotes, which I know you've all read, but I just say also capture not just the summary data, but I think speaks to the heart of what many parents wanted the board to hear, and staff as well. And so I know you've read through them, but I like you see that in the data. There's also voice, like quotes and voice in there. So very high level.
Thank you. Very much appreciated. And I noticed that we have some of our online participants are listening as well, with wondering where the direction will take us, and that leads us into discussion as well. So are there any questions or comments or discussion items that come forward? Interim superintendent is happy to answer to best he can. Any questions that we might have? Is there things that are coming up for trustees? Trustee O'Shea.
Sure. This question, through your chair, would be directed, I think, to our Associate Superintendent of Finance. On page 11, we see a chart of projected deficit for the upcoming school year. I know that the biggest risk here is enrollment fluctuating either up or down, but are there any other unforeseen risks to us that you could imagine that would affect these numbers?
Yeah, sorry, I don't need the mic.
Please.
If I may, before, it's a wonderful question, but I felt at this point in the agenda, and sure, I could have misunderstood. I was speaking to the engagement report and that there would be a later item that the board would then go further into discussion that would address the other attached items, which was information as Trustee O'Shea described that came forward regarding budget, enrollment numbers, and so on. But I seek clarity of the chair.
If you're prepared at this point in time to address it here, we can, or if you prefer to defer till later in the agenda, we're welcome to do that too.
I'd probably withdraw my comment then, and let's just focus on the engagement piece.
Okay,
And I think we can get into the details of that later. I'm fine with that.
okay, thank you so much. All right, are there any other questions? Yes, Trustee.
Mine is just a comment. I was very pleased with the turnout with our engagement night. It was nice to see our Legal families represented, so very pleased.
It was very nice. The weather wasn't too bad until we were going home, so it's appreciated. Any other comments on the engagement report itself? Yes, Trustee Buga.
Just one question. I know that we had representation from Legal Counsel out at our engagement night, as well as the board made an intentional meeting with them as well to discuss. Was that captured in the engagement report as well? Is the feedback from the Legal Counsel in there just as participants, as it is an anonymous survey? Just curious if that is captured in that space.
Yes, great question. Thank you.
The feedback that's captured in this report, they were present and part of the engagement. They've made comments at tables as I walked around too, and I know that that was being recorded, so that is in here. They also were encouraged, and I know a number of them did to do as a community member of the survey, so that would be in here. The meeting that the board had on their own, that wasn't summarized and put into this report.
Right, any other questions or comments of the interim superintendent on this? Okay, well, thank you so much for stepping in to present that for us. It was great. I did enjoy the process as well. It was good for trustees to be involved with seeing in action and hearing in action how people were thinking about and feeling about what was happening in our future. So I thank you so much for that. And if there are no other questions on the engagement report, we will move to the amended agenda items, which would be 9.1, the second quarter financial report, and we will ask our associate superintendent to speak to that.
Thank you, Board Chair. So last time I did this report, I went to a lot of detail. I won't do so much this time, but obviously, if you would like more questions, just feel free to ask. I also have our Director of Finance here as well too, so he can support me if there's something I don't know or can't remember. So just as we're doing this report as of February 28th, 2026, we should expect revenues between 15 and 60%, just depending on the line item type and whether it's a 10-month or 12-month expense. Year-to-date revenues are at 40.1 million, which is about 51%, slightly a little bit higher because we did receive some funding up front, and that would be the teacher salary settlement. We received all that money already. And then year-to-date expenses, 37.3 million or 48%, which is a little bit lower just because some of our expenses are expected to be higher for supplies, IMR work and things like that in the summer, as well as because we've incurred the labor action, our salary costs will be higher later. That 0% for that month is dragging down our percentage a bit. In terms of our Q2 budget update, in comparison to the spring budget, we're at $300,000 deficit as opposed to the $900,000 that we have. In terms of revenue, there were some changes specifically related to the teacher salary settlement and the clawback. So about 2.05 million from the teacher salary settlement was received. And then we saw a decrease of 2.7 million from a clawback for the 1/200th of the strike. Are there any questions? Okay.
Keep going. Thank you.
Proceed. Yep. So budget expenses just increased as well, 600 million, just for the items identified as from the below, but salaries and benefits decreased 1.7 million. Again, for the ATA teacher strike, some benefit changes as well too. ATRF estimates went down and we didn't have ATRF costs for the month of October. Service contracts and supplies increased by 1.2, mainly due to some things we talked about last time, but the collegiate, the federal nutrition dollars we received, supplies and other things like that. Insurance costs were down. I did mention this last time, by about $100,000 from budgeted. And we were expected to do a little bit more IMR work. I did skip over, but investment income is expected to be about $200,000 more as well too. So that is a positive. And we saw a slight decrease in amortization estimates by $100,000.
We do have a question coming forward. Trustee Guba.
Thank you, Chair. Just a curiosity as far as timing goes. Our budgeted revenues and expenses have been adjusted. When are we expecting the clawback? Because we're seeing a savings across our boards due to not paying salaries and benefits for October. So it's showing positive for a little while, but when are we expecting to see the clawback of that 2.7 million?
So we've seen a portion of it. They haven't been given, I'm going to maybe pass over to the director here in a second, but we haven't been given an exact timeline. We did inquire, but I expect it's going to be, the clawback is going to be flatlined over the next 12 months, or the next remainder of the months, at the end of the year.
Yeah, the government didn't give us the detailed schedule, but they said this will be like spread out in the following couple of months. So we're expecting that within this school year or the beginning of next school year, and by the total rate 2.7 million.
Thank you for that. Trustee Briggs.
Through the chair, you mentioned IMR work. What kind of IMR work are we thinking about finishing up in the division for this school year?
I do not have the exact list, but we did bring forward a report on our projected areas we're spending on, and we do plan to bring a report back to the board again here shortly. I can't remember the exact date, but it's on the plan to bring forward to give you a finalization before we move into the summer and move forward with those projects.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, do you have more to share on your report, Associate Superintendent?
No, the only other thing I'll highlight is just on the actual report there, on page, I need to add page numbers, but the third page, you'll see the revenues and expenses by month, and that's a good indicator. Like you can see a lot of where things are flatlining or going up or down. That's a good indicator to see the fluctuations and why, but like you can see, it's pretty evident that, the strike happened in October. We saw increased salary costs in November for the settlements that went out. You can see our non-certificated costs are pretty much flatlined, and benefit costs are pretty stable as well too, except for in January because we got an HSA credit and we had some other adjustments going on. But it's just a good example that we're kind of we're seeing some regularity to our expenses and revenues, which is a bit of a change in practice, which is good just to make sure that we are seeing some consistency so we can project and forecast better.
I do have a question.
Yep.
Also on the schedule of revenues and expenses, sorry, I don't see the page number. Under the services contract and supplies, I see that our spent as of February 28th is a nice low number. Is that because we've been doing a fantastic job of watching our our budget, or can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's twofold. Yeah, it'll definitely be that, as well as a lot of that work is IMR, CMR work. Sorry, IMR work specifically, not CMR, but that happens later in the year, as well as and you being a former principal, and know that sometimes supply budgets get spent a little bit later in the year once there's assurance that they don't need those dollars for other things or surprises. So we do see a little bit of that, as well as I would also say school generated fund spending is just a little bit lower with the strike and things like that. We just aren't seeing the same estimated expenses as we were expecting. We do expect and have had conversations with principals that that will come back in alignment here, but yeah, people are just trying to get back in the rhythm.
Okay. Sounds awesome. Have we any other questions or comments on the second quarter financial report? All right. Seeing none, that brings us to the end of our section, and we have a choice to make here. We've got a little bit of time that we could go. Would you like to suggest whether we would begin the Legal School Review conversation, being that we do need to break in about 20 minutes?
What's it going to do, Edwin Connor or no?
Well, we will probably do that just before we go into our in-camera session to
Sure.
choose that.
Your direction, board. We'll follow. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's take a step into our Legal School Review. And if time does not allow us to finish that, we could certainly come back after our in-camera conversation. Okay, so what we're looking at is the Legal Public School Information Report for consultation. Is that the correct document we are looking at? Yes.
Just from an administration point of view, to help set up the beginning of this discussion for the board. Earlier, I talked to the engagement feedback. That's part of the information that's come to the board. Earlier in January, the next report that you held up, Chair, also came, and that had a bit more operational details. It talked about the programs and how it's being delivered, the staffing and the staff. It talked about the number of young people in there and such. And that, as another source of information, we've already talked through as a board, but here, as you begin to talk through the next stages of Legal Public Education, I mean, school or Legal Public Education and Legal is what I'm trying to say, wanted to include it in that package. There also was the appendix that did reflect on some of the marketing we have done, because that was based on feedback. So just to support your work as a board, administration has gathered that here for review of trustees, and then encourage a discussion to begin through your direction on where the division would like to go regarding public education in Legal.
Okay. Is there anything you would like to highlight in these reports? I know that Trustee O'Shea had a question, and we did say that we would come back to that. Is this now an appropriate time that we would speak to that before we get into our discussions?
If I may?
Yes.
Administration does recognize this is a challenging decision to be before a board. And we have been very thankful that we're in partnership in the engagements. We're very thankful that we've been able to be in community and to listen directly alongside you. Administration didn't put forward a specific recommendation. So I would just highlight that we remain proud, and I think you've seen this, of the depth of education that we've been able to provide in Legal. I remain proud of the project-based activities that are going on. I think I've shared with the board that for a small school, it sure has a lot of heart, and I think we felt that together. I would want the board to know that. I would also want the board to know, from an administration point of view, that it takes significant support for the number of kids that we have, based on the amount of support from the provincial government we have to address the needs there, or based on the grants that we get to address education there. And that is a challenge for administration, not to ensure the program is great, but to ensure is that equity. So that is a challenge for administration that I know the board shares as well. So I just wanted to start, that the school is a wonderful school.
And I think the equity across the division is certainly something that the board is challenged with as we have our discussions today. And I thank you for providing that context, and I think we share the same sentiments. However, decisions do need to be made at some point in time. But let's get to some questions and see if that can generate our discussion and perhaps lead us in a direction or at least a pathway forward. Trustee O'Shea, would you like to return to your question that was regarding enrollment, I believe?
Certainly. So I was looking at page 11, and we see the projected deficit. And certainly I understand that one of the biggest risks is enrollment. Enrollment goes up, that's good. Enrollment goes down, that's not good. But I was just wondering if there are any other risks that might be out there that would challenge this number or change this number.
Associate Superintendent?
Thank you, Board Chair. Yeah, of course, with funding and uncertainty, there's always risks of loss of funding, change in the funding framework, as well as to the risk of cost increases. Like we know our teacher costs are increasing, and whether the small rural school grant will compensate that or will come in another form or capacity. So there are definitely those risks and challenges. I would also just like to note that 53,000 there doesn't include indirect costs as well too, such as insurance and other things like that. So
Sorry, indirect costs like.
Yeah, like insurance,
Okay.
support's covered off out of the central office for things like that. So photocopiers, insurance, that isn't included in that $250,000 too. So there's the risk that those costs increase as well.
Along with that, I'm wondering if there are some other risks. Trustee Briggs?
Can you speak to the small rural grant at the town of Legal and speak to our lease agreement?
So the small rural grant, Legal falls into category group 1, and in group 1 for small rural school grant, you get base funding of $26,000, and you get base instruction funding per student based on the adjusted enrollment method, which is 70% based on projections and 30% based on current. So that is kind of what we get for funding there in terms of base instruction. And then for the lease, we apply yearly for a lease grant. We have to apply yearly. It's based on contingent yearly approval. It's not guaranteed from year to year, but we apply for that to cover the lease of the building, which covers the cost, which is roughly $85,000 of revenue we get, and then $85,000 of expenses. So it's just neutral for us, but it's in and out.
Okay. And when you speak to the first level of the small school grant, we're talking about under 35 or under 50, under 35.
Thank you for clarifying that. I did want to speak to that, so thanks for the reminder.
All right.
But yes, you would have to obtain to go out of that into group 2, which would be more block funded and provide additional supports. You would have to maintain 2 years of at least 35 students, and that would be just to break even with our current expenses. So if we got to 35 students, we would have to hold our staffing levels the same just to break even.
Okay.
And do that for 2 years.
Trustee Briggs?
So 12 more students would have us break even. And we have to hold that for 2 years.
Yeah, 12 more students. I think we have 22 students, 22, but yeah, roughly 12 more students. You have to hold that for 2 years and not increase staffing at all to break even, provided there's no other cost increases or other factors.
Good question.
I'm going to say with increased students, of course, would come the increased cost in terms of staffing.
Yeah, generally, yeah.
So 12 students wouldn't cause us to break even.
No, I would imagine that 12 more students, we would have to put in more staff. So then we would still kind of be in the hole in a deficit situation. Yeah.
Okay, I have a question regarding the risk. So we have a space, a very lovely space, that is currently being leased out. And I imagine that it might be sought after by other groups at some point in time. Would there ever be funding through the Alberta government to do some sort of a pilot project in the form of alternate education in that space? Is that something that could be explored through our district? Is it something that we could explore, or could a group of people explore had they had that desire to do so? I'm just wondering, I'm thinking about that space as a risk, as in terms of competition to our programming. I understand that our Catholic counterpart in the village also has a new modernization. So, I mean, could we speak to those kinds of risks and just see where we're at with those?
Yeah, for sure. No, definitely. Obviously, if we leave a space, there's a risk that somebody could come in and take over that space. Whether there's funding, that would be dependent on between them and the government. I know we've had conversations about capital funding now going to independent schools, and that risk there. For sure, there's that risk that is potentially there as well too. Does that answer your question?
It does. What level of risk are we talking about? Like, if we leave a space empty, is there anything we can do to facilitate an alternate program? Or would that be totally up to people in the community to come up with something alternate and pursue their own funding?
Yeah.
Do you have an answer?
Maybe. Very good point, Chair. Yeah, generally that would be, I'm not saying there's not avenues out there that we could look into, but there are none I'm currently aware of unless the acting superintendent or
if I'm understanding this right, the question may be, if we retain the lease, then we would be able to explore a partnership with someone in community. Is that right? But if we don't retain the lease, then it would return back to the building owner, and we couldn't have an influence or control over who they would extend a new offer to.
Perhaps. I'm just trying to think a little bit outside of our standard yes or no answer in terms of, what might be possible there. Trustee Reed.
Can you give us a little clarity on our lease agreement with the town of the space? We are currently committed to 1 more year, correct?
Yeah.
And has that been applied for?
Yeah, no. Until I have until the decision is made or conversation is how I am moving forward in our budgeting practices and all of our normal processes to apply and move forward to ensure we have funds secured.
Yes. Trustee Briggs and
So potentially, we have a decision to make either way. If we do make a decision to close the school and we are under a lease agreement, potentially the government could say, we're not paying for it because we do not have a school running there. So that would come out of the division funds, correct?
Yeah.
Like that is a risk that we're willing to take.
Yeah, potentially. It depends on just obviously we would broach a termination with them and work through that. But yeah, I would imagine that if we've applied for lease funding and we tell the government, hey, we actually made a decision to move forward with the school closure, that they would not provide us with the $85,000 for sure.
any other thoughts or questions? Now, my understanding is that we would like to make a timely decision regarding the future of public school education in Legal. I would question if the board has any thoughts in terms of, is that a decision that we would be prepared to make today? Is there other things that we would want to explore before we made a decision? I would be prepared to bring a motion or ask for a motion to be brought forward to defer till April at the latest, if that was where we were thinking. I just am not sure where people are in terms of wanting to make a decision today, or whether that would be something that we would want to have further conversations about. Trustee O'Shea.
So, I know in the past, the school division has met with Greater St. Albert
Mhm.
to talk about shared space.
Yes,
Although space is not really our issue
it is.
because it's money in and money out from the government. So somebody allowing us into a school, current school, to run a program would not, isn't our biggest hurdle, right?
Doesn't change it.
However, I do know that we are trying to secure a date
Mhm.
with Greater St. Albert to maybe talk about a few items,
Mhm.
and this may be one. So as a new board, we have not had a chance to meet with Greater St. Albert at this point.
We have not, and can I ask, interim superintendent, do we have anything that is close to solid in terms of a date? Or,
I'll just check and get back.
Yes. yes, if we could.
And I was gonna say, in addition to that, we, I think are trying to secure, some time with our MLA,
Yes,
and we've not had the opportunity to do that yet.
we will on Friday, I believe we have time on Friday. Yes, trustee Reed?
And I'm wondering if my colleagues see those meetings having any bearing on this decision.
Trustee Reed?
I have mixed feelings about, and I'm trying to keep emotion out of this decision because this is, you know, obviously we had school tours, being able to be inside that space and experience the complexities that are there and the amazing staff that we have in that space. This is tough. So I do know that when we met with stakeholders and we met with our partners in council there, we did make the promise to them, or at least I did speak up and make the promise that we would advocate and check all the boxes possible before we made our final call. And I feel like we still have a few boxes left that we haven't checked yet. And those are two key components, I think. Yes, it doesn't answer the space isn't our issue, but I do feel that we need to give this fair time. Having said that, I do know that the administration at the school did express a little bit of urgency so they could complete open houses and try to do their best on their end. And I don't want to come across that we're pushing our decision off and making their life more complex on their end. So I would urge that through the chair to the admin, that we could facilitate a meeting with our partnerships up there quicker and get a resolution back so that it's in all fairness to our families involved, so that we're not backing them into a corner.
Thank you.
And I think that's an important thing. However this plays out, whichever way it goes, it's going to be a tough decision. And we have to keep in mind we're dealing with very complex needs in that school, but we also keep our focus on our school division as a whole. And I think we need to check all the boxes to make that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Trustee Buca?
Thank you, and I know that time is on the clock.
Thank you.
I'd like to echo that it's challenging because time is not on our side. I really want to respect the administration. I feel like if we push back too far our decision, we set them up to fail because they can't actively, have those open houses and start marketing and bring in all of the new families if they're not sure what we're going to do. So I do hesitate, but I also want to make sure that our due diligence is there. I know we've met with our MLA a couple times in the last few years. We've met with our Catholic sister board in the last few years, and I'm hesitant to hang too much weight on these conversations, whether that'll change our decision or not, just because the space part isn't really the problem where recruitment is, and the sooner we have a decision one way or another, the sooner our folks in the community can actually do the work of trying to either bolster it or making sure that we have really great resources set up for the kids going forward if a change has to happen. The more time we can allow our admin team and our administration at all of our schools to prepare for that, I think the better. So I'm really hesitant how far off I would hate to wait until the end of April board meeting to make a decision, but perhaps if we wanted to wait for some meetings to happen, maybe call a special meeting. I would be in favor of that as soon as possible, because I just want to make sure that our teams have enough time to do their best in either situation.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm seeing that, yes, we're going to be a little bit cognizant of time, and then, no, that's fine. I would love to hear what you have to say, and then I just wondered if we could come to a consensus. I'm sort of hearing that we would be okay to fulfill our obligations with our sister board and with our MLA, and then perhaps having a special board meeting to come to an agreement before the end of April. But would you like to add to that, Trustee Gibbons?
I just wanted to, like, with the engagement, reading everything, it seemed that the families from Legal are asking for sooner rather than later as well. So I just wanted to be mindful of that as well. And
Support
Stacey had
discussion.
mentioned that those options were explored before, so if it's gonna, you know, I would support a special board meeting as well,
Okay,
instead of waiting till the end if we decide to defer it.
okay. Trustee Briggs, and then
Because we're short of time here, we are gonna be going in camera. I'd like to make a friendly amendment
yes,
to defer at this time to the April board meeting and direct administration. Sorry,
Yeah, can I just clarify?
yes,
You would just want to move to postpone the motion until, and you generally want to specify a date time.
to the, I'm gonna put it to the April board meeting at this time, because that is a scheduled meeting date. And if our board chooses to pick another date at another time after our consultations with our sister board and our MLA, then we can do it at that time. But right now, we do have a scheduled board meeting for April, so I'd like to put it for April 26th, is that correct?
if
Yeah,
not before.
Can I make another suggestion?
April 29th.
Yeah.
Or 29th.
You could potentially get away with, I moved to postpone the motion until April, and maybe not pick a specific date.
Okay.
And then as long as you get to it before the end of April.
Okay, all right. Is there conversation? Would you like to speak to your friendly amendment? Does everybody accept it as a friendly amendment?
There was no motion on it.
Yeah, you have to put a motion
So
on.
you'll make the motion with a friendly amendment, and we will speak.
I move that the Board of Trustees to add a friendly amendment. Go ahead.
Sorry, it's not a friendly amendment. You got to put the motion on the table. So you would read the motion and you would read option A or B, and then you would say, I move to postpone the motion, and then you would do that and then vote on that. So it's just not a friendly amendment, just for clarification.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's actually, you're making another motion to defer.
But is it a separate motion to defer? Because we're actually not picking A or B.
Yep.
Okay, so with the motion, can you help us out with the wording?
Yep.
Would we be making a motion to defer the decision regarding public education
Yes.
in Legal until an April meeting with the board?
Yeah, I think that's the best course of action.
Okay, all right,
You made the motion.
I've made the motion. All right. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Would anyone like to speak for it? Or are we ready to perhaps reach an agreement on that? Is anyone opposed to it?
I would just like to ensure that we are not waiting till our board meeting at the end of April, that we put some urgency behind this and get this as quickly as possible where we can fit it in April.
Is there anyone opposed to the urgency, the motion? All right, so we will call the motion carried as proposed. I for sure. Yes,
You should just take a vote.
would you like all in favor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We will have a vote. If everyone is in favor of deferring the motion to a meeting in April, please raise your hand if you're voting yes. All in favor? Thank you very much. All right, I am looking at the time, and the next item on the agenda is my very favorite part of the agenda, which is the Edwin Parr selection. And so we have candidates that are provided for us, and we are going to excuse ourselves as a board, and we are going to have a motion to go in camera, and we will discuss the Edwin Parr selection, and as well as the labor matter. And when we come out, we will have motions for you. Would someone like to make that motion? Oh, Trustee Berkner, thank you.
I move that we move into camera
All right,
at 1:56.
at 1:56. All in favor?